Have you ever been in a situation where someone said something small, but it stung like a punch? Maybe they made a joke about how you look, or a sarcastic comment about your work. Sometimes it's not even loud, it's just a subtle tone, a smirk, a few words dropped in the middle of a conversation, but it hits you, and suddenly you shrink inside. You question yourself. You feel smaller, weaker, less valuable. That's what belittling does. It's designed to cut you down without ever raising a hand. And the worst part? Most of the time, you don't even know how to respond. Do you clap back? Do you stay silent? Do you laugh it off, even though it burns inside? That's why today I want to talk about how to respond when someone belittles you. And not just respond, but respond with real confidence. I'm not talking about fake confidence, the kind where you pretend not to care, but you're dying inside. I mean the kind of confidence that is unshakable, the kind that stays with you no matter who is in the room or what is being said. Because here's the truth. People belittle others for one main reason. It makes them feel big. It's not about you. It's not about your worth. It's about them, their insecurity, their need to dominate, their lack of something inside that they try to cover by making you feel small. When I realized that, it flipped the script for me. Because all those moments I used to think, maybe they're right, maybe I am less, I began to see for what it really was. Projection. They were throwing their own pain, their own fear onto me. And the moment you see that, the power shifts. You stop being the victim, and you start being the one in control. But I know it's not always easy. In the moment, your heart races, your chest tightens, your brain freezes. That's the human reaction when someone cuts at your identity. And this is where confidence matters most. Confidence isn't about shouting back louder. Confidence isn't about proving you're better. Confidence is about knowing deep down that no one else has the authority to define your value. That belongs to you. So when we talk about confidence tips, it's not just about what to say in the heat of the moment. It's about building the kind of inner ground that no rude comment can shake. Think about it this way. If someone told you the sky is green, would you argue? No. You'd probably just laugh, maybe shake your head because you know it's not true. That's the same energy you need to bring when someone belittles you. Their words are not truth. Their opinion is not law. You decide whether it sticks or not. And that's what we're going to explore together. How to stand strong in those moments, how to respond with confidence, and how to leave the situation not just unharmed, but actually more secure in who you are. Because believe it or not, every time someone tries to cut you down, it's actually an opportunity to grow stronger, to practice owning your value, to show yourself that you are not breakable. Today's video is not just about words, it's about power, and not their power. It's about reclaiming yours. So let's talk about how to respond when someone belittles you, and how to transform those little cuts into stepping stones toward unshakable confidence. Before we dive into the what to say part, I think it's important that we really understand what belittling is and why people do it. Because if we don't get this part clear, we'll keep taking their words personally, and that's what crushes our confidence. Think about it. Belittling always has this one aim, to make you feel small. That's why it's called belittle, to literally reduce your sense of self. Sometimes it's obvious. Someone might say, "Wow, you really don't know that?" Or they might laugh at your idea in a meeting. Other times it's more subtle, like an eye roll, a sarcastic tone, or a joke that has a sharp edge to it. And the thing is, if you don't catch it for what it is, your brain starts believing it. You internalize it. You start shrinking, not just in that moment, but every time after, because your subconscious starts whispering, maybe they're right. But here's the truth most people don't see. People belittle others because of their own insecurity. It's not really about you. It's about them needing to feel powerful. Imagine someone carrying a balloon that's half deflated. To make it look full, they press it down on your head to make themselves look taller. That's what belittling is. A cheap trick to inflate themselves by pressing you down. And let's be real, sometimes it even comes from people close to us, family, friends, coworkers. That makes it hurt even more, right? But if you step back and look at it, you'll see that they're usually projecting their own doubts. Someone insecure about their intelligence will mock yours. Someone insecure about their looks will comment on yours. Someone insecure about their career will downplay your achievements. It's almost like they're holding up a mirror, but instead of showing you, they're really showing themselves. Now here's the problem. If you don't understand this, you'll keep thinking you're the problem. You'll try to fix yourself for them. You'll overthink your every move, trying to avoid their comments. But the more you do that, the smaller you become, and the more power you hand over to them. It becomes this cycle. They belittle, you shrink, they feel bigger, and then they keep doing it. Confidence, then, isn't about fighting them back with bigger words. Confidence is about breaking that cycle. It's about recognizing that their words are not truth, they're just noise. Think of it like this. If a radio station is playing static, do you sit there and get offended by the sound? No, you just tune it out. That's how you need to treat belittling comments. They're static from someone else's broken station. You don't have to let it mess with your frequency. I remember a moment in my own life where I got this lesson the hard way. There was a time when people around me constantly questioned my ideas. They'd say things like, "That won't work," or "You're dreaming too big," or even laugh when I talked about my goals. At first, it got to me. I started second-guessing myself. I thought maybe I was reaching too far, maybe I wasn't capable. But over time, I started noticing something. The people who belittled me weren't actually doing much with their own lives. They were stuck, and their way of coping with that was trying to keep me stuck too. That's when it clicked for me. Belittling has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their limits. And here's the deeper truth. If you react out of pain every time, they win. Not because you're weak, but because they've succeeded in shifting your focus. Your energy gets spent defending, overthinking, or replaying the moment in your head. And that's the real danger of belittling. It's not the words themselves, but the way it hijacks your energy. That's why we need to reframe the whole thing. Instead of asking, "Why did they say that to me?" we need to start asking, "What does this say about them?" Do you see how that changes everything? Suddenly, you're not the target anymore. You're the observer. You're not absorbing their words, you're analyzing them. And when you do that, their power shrinks instantly. But let me also say this. Confidence doesn't mean you'll never feel the sting. We're human. Words do hurt. Confidence means you recognize the sting, but you don't let it define you. It's like being in the rain. You can't stop raindrops from falling, but you can choose not to sit there soaked and miserable. You grab an umbrella and keep walking. That's what confidence is when it comes to belittling, an umbrella that keeps the rain from soaking into your skin. So, what does this mean for us in practice? It means that the next time someone belittles you, your first step isn't to fire back. It's to pause and remember, this is about them, not me. That pause is powerful. It gives you the space to decide how to respond, instead of reacting emotionally. And in that space, you reclaim your control. Think about the times you've been belittled before. How much of your energy went into replaying it later, wishing you said something different, or letting it crush your mood? What if, instead, you learned to use those moments as practice grounds for your confidence? Every comment becomes a rep at the gym, strengthening your inner muscles. So instead of getting smaller, you actually grow stronger every time it happens. That's the first layer of real confidence, understanding the why behind belittling. Once you know it's not about you, you stop shrinking. You start standing taller, not because people stop belittling, but because it doesn't stick anymore. You know what most people do when they get belittled? They either shrink into silence, or they explode in anger. Both reactions actually give the other person what they want. If you shrink, they succeed in making you feel small. If you explode, they succeed in dragging you into their emotional chaos. But there's a third path. It's not about ignoring it completely, and it's not about fighting back with equal fire. It's about responding with presence and confidence so you keep your ground. So let's walk through some practical ways you can do this. Imagine we're just two friends sitting at a cafe, and I'm telling you these things because I've tried them myself in real conversations. 1. Short, calm responses. The first strategy is to use short, calm phrases that show you heard the comment but you're not shaken by it. For example, if someone says, "That's a dumb idea," you don't have to defend your entire intelligence. You can simply say, "Noted," or interesting point. That's it. No long speeches, no emotional defense. What happens here is powerful. You acknowledge the comment without absorbing it. And that disarms them. It's like throwing a wet blanket on their fire. Why does this work? Because belittling thrives on reaction. It needs you to either break down or lash out. If you don't give that reaction, it starves. And in that silence, the weight of their own words bounces back to them. 2. Ask a clarifying question. Sometimes the best way to handle belittling is to put the spotlight back on them. Let's say someone says, "Wow, you're so slow with this project." Instead of snapping back, you can calmly ask, "What do you mean by that?" Or, "Can you explain?" Suddenly, they have to justify themselves. And usually they can't. Because belittling isn't built on logic, it's built on jabs. And when you ask them to explain, they either fumble or backtrack. This does two things. It shows you're not afraid of their words, and it forces them to hear themselves. And often, when they hear their own words out loud, they realize how petty or empty they sound. 3. Reframe the comment. Another strategy is to flip the comment in a way that serves you. For instance, if someone says, "You're way too ambitious," instead of getting defensive, you can respond with, "Thank you, I take that as a compliment." Or if they say, "You're always working," you can respond with, "Yes, I'm building something I care about." See what happened there? You turn what was meant to shrink you into fuel. You've reframed it into something that affirms your path. And here's the deeper reason this works. Confidence is not about avoiding criticism, it's about transforming it. When you reframe their words, you're not only protecting yourself, you're also training your subconscious to see yourself differently. 4. Keep your body language strong. Confidence isn't just in the words, it's in the posture. If you respond with a shaky voice and hunched shoulders, even the best phrase won't land. But if you stand tall, keep your tone calm, and maintain steady eye contact, you're already communicating strength before you say anything. Imagine saying, "I hear you," with a steady tone versus with a trembling one. Same words, different energy. And energy is what people pick up first. One trick I use is grounding myself physically in the moment. When I feel the sting of a comment, I place my feet firmly on the ground, take one slow breath, and then respond. It keeps me from reacting impulsively and helps my words carry more weight. 5. Redirect the conversation. Sometimes the best response is to pivot. If someone belittles you in a group setting, you can respond briefly, then immediately redirect to the main topic. For example, "Thanks for sharing. Now back to what we were discussing." This shows everyone that you're not derailed, you're still in control of the conversation. And that control is the essence of confidence. Why these strategies work. All these responses have one thing in common. They take the power away from the belittler. Instead of feeding the cycle of attack and defense, you shift the dynamic. You're not denying what they said, you're not escalating it. You're simply refusing to let it define the moment. And the more you practice these strategies, the more natural they become. Think of it like building a muscle. The first time you respond calmly, it might feel awkward. You might replay it in your head later thinking, "Did that sound right?" But over time, it becomes instinct. Just like lifting weights, the reps add up. Each time you handle a belittling comment with composure, your confidence muscle grows stronger. Let me share something personal. When I started applying these strategies, I noticed a dramatic shift not just in how others treated me, but in how I saw myself. Before, I used to dread conversations with certain people because I knew they'd throw in some sarcastic jab. But once I had these tools, I actually started looking forward to those moments. Not because I enjoyed being belittled, but because I saw them as opportunities to practice. Each rude comment became a training ground for me to stand taller. And here's the surprising part. The more confident I became, the less those people tried to belittle me. It's like bullies sense when they can't get under your skin, and they move on. Or sometimes they even start respecting you. So now I want to turn this back to you. Think about your life. Who are the people who belittle you? Maybe it's a boss, a coworker, a family member, or even a friend who always makes those jokes at your expense. Picture the next time it happens. Which of these strategies could you try? Could you say noted and move on? Could you ask them to explain? Could you reframe their words into fuel? Because here's the real win. When you stop letting belittling shrink you, you don't just protect your confidence, you expand it. You show yourself that you're stronger than the noise. And once you see that, you'll never go back to feeling small again. You know what I realized after practicing these strategies? They don't just stop someone from making me feel small in the moment. They start spilling into every other part of life. Because the truth is, the way you handle belittling words is a reflection of how you handle life itself. If you can stay calm when someone's trying to poke at you, you can stay calm when business gets tough, when your family disagrees with you, or when life throws a curveball. Think about business for a second. In business, you're constantly putting yourself out there, selling ideas, products, services, and people will always have opinions. Some will support you, some will doubt you, and some will belittle you just to see if you'll crack. If you don't know how to respond, you'll either collapse under criticism or waste your energy fighting back. But when you master calm, confident responses, you become unshakable. You can sit in a meeting where someone says, "That'll never work." And instead of defending like your life depends on it, you calmly say, "Noted. Let's test it and see." Suddenly, you're not the nervous entrepreneur anymore. You're the leader in the room. Now, let's move to family. Family is tricky because belittling often doesn't come as open attacks. It comes as subtle remarks, little digs disguised as jokes. Maybe your sibling says, "Oh, you always dream too big." Or your parent says, "When are you going to get a real job?" And because it's family, those words cut deeper. But the same principle applies. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to prove them wrong in the moment. You simply hold your ground. You can respond with, "I hear you," and then keep walking your path. And here's the magic. Over time, your results will speak louder than any comeback ever could. Leadership is another layer where this plays out. Great leaders aren't the ones who never face criticism. They're the ones who know how to absorb it without losing their center. Imagine you're leading a team and someone publicly belittles your decision. If you lash out, you lose credibility. If you crumble, you lose respect. But if you respond calmly, asking, "What do you mean by that?" or reframing the comment into something constructive, you show everyone watching that you're grounded. And that builds trust. People follow leaders who don't get rattled. Let me tell you something personal. The moment I learned to master this, my entire perspective shifted. I used to think confidence was about never being challenged. Like if I worked hard enough, people would stop doubting me. But that's not how it works. People will always doubt, always question, always belittle. True confidence isn't about avoiding that. It's about standing firm in it. It's about not letting their words dictate your worth. And when you understand that, your mindset changes in business. Suddenly, rejection isn't personal. It's just part of the process. Your mindset shifts in family. Their doubts don't weigh on you anymore. Your mindset shifts in leadership. You can make decisions knowing not everyone will agree, but you'll hold your ground anyway. And that shift, my friend, that shift is what creates real freedom. Let's bring in a perspective from a book I once read, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. One of the agreements is, don't take anything personally. He explains that what people say is a reflection of their own reality, not yours. When someone belittles you, it says more about their fears, insecurities, and limitations than it does about you. Once you grasp that, you stop carrying their words like heavy luggage. You just set it down and keep walking. That principle alone has saved me countless hours of emotional stress. And let's add another layer. This isn't just psychology, it's also about energy. Your attention is your energy. Every time you overreact to someone's words, you leak energy. But every time you respond calmly, you protect it. That energy you save can then be invested into building your dreams, strengthening your relationships, or simply living in peace. Think of it like money. Would you hand out cash to someone who insults you? Of course not. But that's what you do when you give away your energy to rude comments. Learning to respond with calm is like locking your wallet. You keep your resources safe. Now, I want to challenge you to imagine how different your life would look if you mastered this across all areas. What if at work, you no longer feared being belittled in meetings because you knew exactly how to respond? What if at home, your family's doubts didn't rattle you anymore? What if in your personal life, rude strangers couldn't ruin your day because you had control over your emotional thermostat? That's not just confidence. That's power. And here's the truth. This isn't about being perfect. There will still be moments when someone's words sting. But each time you practice, you grow stronger. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you upgrade your identity. You're no longer the person who gets dragged around by others' opinions. You become the person who commands respect without raising your voice. That's why I always say, confidence isn't built in isolation, it's built in confrontation. It's built in those exact moments when someone tries to make you small. And instead of shrinking, you stand tall. So my friend, the next time someone belittles you, see it as a training session. See it as an opportunity to flex your confidence muscle. Try one of these strategies. Notice how it feels. Notice how the power dynamic shifts, and then watch how that practice ripples into every other part of your life. Because when you learn to stay unshaken by small words, you unlock a strength that carries you through the big challenges too. Before we end this, I want to share a story. There was once a man who worked in a small shop. Every day, his coworkers would laugh at him. They'd call him names, mock the way he dressed, and even make fun of his ideas. At first, he tried to fight back, raising his voice, throwing insults back at them. But every time he reacted, they only laughed harder. It was like they enjoyed watching him lose his cool. One day, instead of snapping back, he tried something different. When they mocked him, he simply smiled and said, "Noted." When they insulted his ideas, he said, "Interesting point." And when they laughed at his appearance, he calmly said, "I hear you." At first, his coworkers were confused. They expected anger, not composure. But over time, something changed. They got bored of trying to provoke him because there was no reaction to feed on. Slowly, the ridicule stopped. And what's more, people started noticing his quiet strength. They saw him as the one who could not be rattled. The moral of the story? Power doesn't always come from fighting back. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Not silence out of weakness, but calmness out of control. Because when you hold your ground with composure, you show the world that your worth is not up for debate. And that's the real secret to confidence. It's not about making sure no one ever belittles you, because they will. It's about training yourself to respond in a way that preserves your energy, protects your peace, and builds your authority. The next time someone tries to make you feel small, remember you are in charge of your reaction. And in that moment, you hold all the power.